Today I'm going to talk about the Pampas Tour in Bolivia and tell you a little bit about why it's one of the best tours I've ever done and why it's something that you ought to do as well. We were based in La Paz at the time, and the Pampas Tour departs from a small town called Santa Rosa out in the Amazon basin. Most of the touring companies, though, that run these tours are based in a place called Ruanabaqui, which is over the Andes and in the Amazon basin, which you can see a little bit better here in this terrain map, where you've got to go right over the mountains to get to Ruanabaqui. You can get there by bus. They say it's 11 or 12 hours by bus on a good day. I think that at the time there may have been some wet weather, or because not all the roads are sealed along the way, and it may have taken 18 plus hours to get there. So we put a line through that idea and decided to take a flight. A short 30 to 40 minute flight gets you to Ruanabaqui in a tiny little turboprop. And when you arrive there, just as an asterisk, Ruanabaqui, for Top Gear fans, if anybody remembers Top Gear from all those years ago, that's where the Top Gear Bolivia special began from. It's a tributary just to the side of the Beni River, which is the main large river that runs past Ruanabaqui. I think the special is still available on Prime. Check it out. It was one of the reasons why I wanted to go to Bolivia many years ago. The first time I went there was because of watching that special. Now, we originally decided to do both a jungle tour and a Pampas tour, both departing from Ruanabaqui. We never made it on the jungle tour. That requires about a 30-minute boat trip in a little canoe, a motorised canoe, up the Beni River. And we found that when we disembarked, which essentially just meant jumping out of the canoe onto some sand, we had to carry our own luggage. And, that's not such a bad thing. But along the way, we had to cross this river/creek by walking across stones and holding up our luggage along, above our heads. And to cut a long story short, the stones were a little bit slippery. I fell in and did a major dummy spit and demanded to have my money back and get taken back to Ruanabaqui. So never did the jungle tour. By all accounts, it's okay if you can handle carrying your own luggage across slippery rocks and don't mind getting a little bit wet. So, Pampas Tour. We take a four-wheel drive to Santa Rosa, not because the road's bad or anything. I think it was just so we could accommodate half a dozen people in the vehicle. The road was fine. Everyone drives Land Cruisers in Bolivia, so the drive was 2.5 to 3 hours. We stopped a couple of times along the way. Once you get to Santa Rosa, you take a small motorised canoe to your lodgings. And this is where it gets interesting. So the lodgings are on the bank of the Yacuma River. The water levels rise about 8 to 10 metres after the rainy season. Once the water levels rise, the lodgings are actually in the river. The river rises sufficiently high to surround all the lodgings. And let's stop calling them lodgings. Let's call them huts, because that's what they are. So we can see a few pictures here of the huts and the small walkways between the huts. So is that a problem? And if so, why is it a problem? Well, the huts are now part of the river. They're surrounded by the river. Because we're surrounded by the river, everything that's in the river is surrounding you. And it turns out we had 3 Caiman just living in and around the huts where we were staying. And so this meant that when we first got there and we spotted the Caiman, walking along those little dilapidated walkways in between huts, it was like walking through a minefield or walking on eggshells. It was just like one slow step, pause, another slow step. And These things are basically harmless, apparently. Apparently. They used to sun themselves next to the hut. It was funny though, after the third day, I mean, we were just walking back and forward as though, there was no problems whatsoever. So the initial panic just wore off after a while. You just get used to them being there and get used to walking up and down these dilapidated little wooden walkways. So when we're there, we go on daily boat trips in these motorised canoes. Funny little setups. So motorised canoes with these, I guess what you'd call like garden chairs lined up within the canoes for people to sit on, accommodating 8 people in 4 rows. The wildlife, you see so much wildlife on this tour, starting with pink dolphins. There were sections of the river where there was quite a lot of these pink dolphins. They don't jump out of the water like ocean dolphins do, unfortunately. But you do see them coming up for air quite frequently as you're motorising along. The Yacuma River's fairly narrow, but that's great because it means you're always fairly close to the banks, regardless of what part of the river you're on, and you get to see the wildlife in the trees fairly close up. And you can swim in the river as long as your guide confirms that there's no caiman around. So in this pic here, the water level's probably about 8 metres, even though I got my hands out of the water, I'm treading water. Apparently though, sometimes the pink dolphins can come along and nip at your heels, but and hurt, they bite. But I never experienced that. So when you're there and you're cruising up and down the river, you get to see and hear howler monkeys and plenty of other monkeys. Here's a few that were hanging around our huts. And these little monkeys here are everywhere, and if the boat gets too close, they'll end up jumping on board. You'll see capybaras, and for Aussies, they're kind of like giant wombats, I guess you'd describe them as. One morning we went out to go on an anaconda safari or anaconda hunt in an area where the ground was relatively dry, but the grass was about chest high. But we had sticks and we were walking and prodding through the grassland, but we never managed to find any anacondas. I don't know whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. We did find this bloke though hiding away in a corner. Never got too close to it though. He didn't look like he was this kind of snake you'd want to get too close to. On another day you'll go piranha fishing, and we managed to catch a few, and you take them back and they'll cook them up for you, even though there's hardly any meat on them. I'm glad they weren't in the water though when we were swimming, but I don't think they're like cartoon piranhas in real life. I don't think they sort of eat you down to the bone in a couple of seconds like they do in cartoons. Nevertheless, they've got pretty sharp teeth. Another day we do a pre-dawn departure and go and see the sunrise over the wetlands, which is quite picturesque. And at the end of it all, we head back to Ruanabaki. So overall, this was 3 days, 2 nights. You get to see many types of varieties of monkeys, pink dolphins, caiman. You can't miss the caiman because they're all around you. Piranhas, capybaras, many types of birds. And the beauty of it is that you're really quite close to them all. So it's not as though you've got to look through telescopes or zoom in on your cameras or anything like that. You're really quite close to it all. So it's amazing. So I can't recommend this highly enough. If you find yourselves in La Paz and you're looking for something to do, this was the time of the year with that sort of water level was in September. So bear that in mind. There may be other times of the year when the water level is quite low, in the middle of the dry season, for example, and the experience may not be the same. But nevertheless, if you get the opportunity, can't recommend it highly enough. So any comments, just put them down there below. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Thank you.